Good morning. We are live. If your notification's popping up, come sign on. Don't forget you want to give us a thumbs up or tell us who's there. Type in a little comment. Say, hi, it's Sophia. Hi, it's Casey. Usually Sophia and Casey are the first ones on. Mr. Joey's watching for me. Mark's watching on the computer to tell me hi. Let me know who's there. Mr. Joey's here. His Nana's here. Mark's on the computer, so if you get a comment typed back to you, that's from Mark.
Wyckoff's.
Oh, Michaela's here. Michaela.
Courtney Foster K.
Hi, Michaela. And I think Cora and Sunny. Hi, Cora. Hi, Sunny.
Richmond.
And I didn't hear who Mr. Mark just told me.
Lisa Richmond.
Lisa Richmond. Don't know who goes with that. I want to say hi to a bunch of people today. We've got some new families joining us, some new kids joining us. We've even got kids
Cora.
whose brother and sister have been here before.
Kayla.
And they got another brother or sister joining them. So we'll say hi to a bunch of people this morning while we're signing on. I gotta say hi, and I don't know whether these families, they might be doing online classes right now. They might be joining us later, but it was really fun. The Price family, we go to church with the Prices, which, you know, we haven't been able to see people for a while, so it was fun to see Stacy pick up bags. She was picking up bags for Ella and Finn. So hi Ella, hi Finn. We had the LaFew family joining us. So Connor and Haley are out there somewhere. And this is fun. I have a family whose dad, Mark, so we have another Mark, is painting with his 3 boys. So they're a family kind of like us. We raised 3 boys too. I suspect our boys are a little older than yours. So their dad is painting with Alec and Matthew and Jonathan. So hi guys. You have something in common with Miss Ginny. 3 boys, except you guys are a little younger than mine. We've got the Dara family. I don't know, I may mangle pronouncing people's names, but the Dara family. Mom picked up a bag. Mom's doing it with the kids. We got Walker and Lane joining us, so that's kind of fun. We got some families painting together. I got some siblings joining siblings that did it last week. So Nicholas is joining Anna Marie. Hi, Nicholas. And the Rain family is sweet family. I've got Peter and Ellie and Sarah Grace. Hi, Sarah Grace. And these kids I've had here at the studio before, and I didn't know they must have a brother Benjamin that's joining this week. So hi Benjamin, haven't met you yet, although I've probably seen you come in the door to get Peter and Ellie and Sarah Grace. And Nick signed on. Hi Nick. We were looking the other day. Nick's one of the kids we've had with us since the very first week.
There's Ben Rosenberg.
Hi Ben. Ben Rosenberg grew up with my middle kid, Charlie. So he tagged on just to watch. We got some friends of ours just watching from all over the place. I think I read where Ben's moving to Connecticut. So I just have another Benjamin. Benjamin and Charles are painting together this week and doing art together this week. And we have Abigail and Mallory that joined us this week. I have 2 more siblings, Sam and Sabina. You'll have to let me know if I pronounced that wrong, Sabina. They're painting together, and then I got a little girl named Hannah painting. I also have another little girl named Ella Hunter. That's a very cool name. We have another Ella, an older Ella that's been painting with us, doing art with us sometimes. And look, this is a name I've got a lot of. Landon and Harper.
Sam and Sabella just said good morning.
Oh, hi. Did I say your name right, I hope? So I think I just saw Sam and Sabina.
Sabina?
She'll have to let me know if I'm saying that right. I think they just signed on. I got Landon and Harper. I know another Harper. I think this is the 3rd Harper I've now met, although I haven't got to see you yet. And I got a pretty name. I love some of the names. I'm learning such cool new names. I got Hunter Grace. Isn't that a pretty name? Hunter Grace is joining us, and I got 2 more siblings. We got Hudson and Ryder joining us. Those are very cool names too. And then this is my favorite. have a little girl, although I don't think she's so little, Eliza Jane and Channing are joining us. I just think those are such pretty names. Got more pretty names. Jada is painting with her kids, Brianna and Brady. So that sounds very cool. Here's my first Alexis. We haven't had an Alexis doing art with us yet. And I've had a number of Alexis in the studio too. So hi, Alexis. Gotta make sure I say it right. And then here's another Landon. We got Landon painting with Ava Gray. So hi, guys. And then I have to tell you, Reagan, we got Reagan and Emma and Peyton that are doing art together with us. And this Reagan spells her name the same way as another Reagan that I know up in Charleston. So it's very cool, Reagan. I actually called my friend in Charleston to let them know about you. And then I need to know how to pronounce this little girl's name. Amina. So Amina, if you're doing art with us right now, let me know if I pronounced that right. Such a pretty name. I've learned such cool names. It's really fun for us at the studio to see all these neat names that get registered. So today, if you got your activity bag out, we are going to do some what's called watercolor resist today. And it's resist because we're going to use our oil pastels to draw with first, and then we're going to use watercolor to paint right over the top of them, which is kind of cool because oil and water don't mix. If you've ever helped Mom cook in the kitchen before and you try to mix oil and water together, the oil just beads up and sits on top of the water. It's kind of the same concept when you use oil pastels, which some of you might have different colored boxes. Some of you might have your oil pastels with a rubber band around them. So we have this set of oil pastels. You can tell Miss Ginny's are getting kind of used up here. The oil pastels are kind of like a mix between chalk pastels, like you write on a blackboard with, or sidewalk chalk that you draw with, and crayons. Crayons have a lot more wax in them. They don't smear, they don't blend. They kind of stay put right where you put them. Chalk pastels kind of blend and smudge and do whatever you want them to. So oil pastels are kind of like in between. They're in the middle of that. Oil pastels have a lot of oil in them instead of wax like a crayon. And the oil pastels let you blend them together really nicely. So we're going to learn a little bit about that, why we make our bumblebees. We're making a garden scene today. So a couple things we're going to learn about it is we're going to learn a little bit about drawing bumblebees so they don't just look like a balloon. We're going to make them bend like they're flying. And then we're going to do a background with the watercolor. And the background is going to kind of be abstract. Kind of looks like these bumblebees are flying through a flower garden, but we didn't draw all the little petals and stems and leaves with flowers. So we're going to do kind of an abstract background, very impressionistic. And then we're going to, I'm going to hold it up so you guys can see.
Which paper do they use?
We're going to do this on your piece of watercolor paper. So the clipboard of papers that were in your activity bags, it was probably the paper right on the top. You had a piece that's really heavy white, and it had a little M, a little cursed M for Monday, written in the top corner. So you've got a heavy piece of white paper, should have a little M on it. You also had a piece of black paper and 3 more pieces of white paper. Those pieces were a little thinner. Watercolor paper is just a little heavier. So look for your piece of paper. It should have been the one right on top of your clipboard. It has a little tiny M written in pencil in the corner of it. So find that. That's the paper we're going to use today. Watercolor paper will handle getting all this water on it, and it won't get mushy and fall apart on us. Then your paint pots that were in your activity bag, we had one that had some green watercolor in it and one that had some blue watercolor in it. You also have a paint pot that's got white. We're going to use that on Wednesday. That's actually not watercolor. So your blue and your green. Some of you might have slightly different shades than I do. We had lots of different shades of green we were passing out and different shades of blue. So find your blue and your green. Find your piece of watercolor paper. And you should have 2 styrofoam plates. So we're going to use one of them today. Save the other one in your activity bag. We're going to use that on Wednesday. Okay? You have this big chip brush. Everybody that's been with us for a while, you had one of these a long time ago. We're going to use this to do our background. Okay, so find your big brush. And then from home, you need to get yourself a container of water. Just any kind of cup, you can put some water in it. Grab your pencil, so we can draw with our pencil first. Get your little white eraser out of your activity bag, because we never want to erase with these pink erasers. Pink erasers make a mess on your paper. So grab yourself a pencil from home. Get a couple paper towels. We're going to use one to pat our brush on, but we're going to save the other one to do a special effect on our background. So get yourself a cup of water, 2 paper towels, your chip brush, and your watercolor out of your bag. Get a pencil and an eraser. I'm going to leave my watercolor over here with a cup of water because I'm not going to need all of that. We're going to do our drawing first. So we're going to draw our butterflies first and then use our oil pastels. So get out your pack of oil pastels there. And find your piece of watercolor paper. Get your pencil and we will be ready to go. Mr. Joey's going to move the camera in. And I'm going to move some of this stuff. So I'm going to let Mr. Joey grab me. Mr. Joey wants me to move my big old foot that always kicks his camera. I'm going to move my foot while Mr. Joey gets us set up here. I'm going to put our picture down so you'll be able to see it. So I'm going to ask Mr. Joey to grab me a chair over there. And I'll move my watercolor and everything off so we got room on our little table here to let you see the picture while we draw. Now we're going to look at how to draw this because I want to show you a couple things about drawing a bumblebee. A bumblebee's shape of his body is kind of like an oval, isn't it? If we look at a bumblebee, technically, I'm sure the bumblebee's probably got, put that over there, Joey. Technically, he's got different sections to his body. But overall, he's pretty fluffy looking. He's pretty fluffy looking, and pretty much when you look at his body, he kind of looks like an oval. Can we see okay, Mr. Joey?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's move that bag so I can move. There we go. Okay, so Bumblebee's body is pretty oval. This bumblebee looks a little chunky. I've got 3 bumblebees on mine. You could make more than 3 if you wanted to. You could just make 1 if you want to. It's your art, so you get to have a lot of leeway with what you do. But what I want you to do is, I think when I drew this bumblebee, he has this oval-shaped body, right? And then he's got part of a circle for his head. His head's a lot smaller than the rest of his body, isn't it? And then a bumblebee's an insect, so they have 3 pairs of legs. 2 legs in each pair, so they've got 6 legs. So we get 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. But I think if we look at the bumblebee's body, it is kind of an oval shape, but the top of his body is a little smaller. He's fattest in the middle, and then the bottom of the oval gets a little smaller too. So we're going to look at making this guy look a little better. He looks just a little chunky. Maybe that bumblebee ate too much pollen or something. So I'm going to position, I kind of liked my 3 bumblebees. I got 1 coming from this direction, 1 coming from this direction, and this guy's coming right up from the bottom of my paper. And you know, Miss Ginny, I always like when things go off my paper a little bit. So this bumblebee didn't quite make it onto my paper. I think it makes a very interesting composition. You can plot where to put your bumblebees wherever you would like. We're going to draw one together and then draw one from the opposite way. Do you notice how this bumblebee, I like this one in particular. See this bumblebee? He's kind of an oval shape, but see how it looks like my oval bent? If we think of this as the bumblebee's tummy under here, he's kind of bending a little bit. So he kind of looks a little less chunky than this one. So we're going to look at imagining an oval, but then think of it like when somebody's making a balloon animal and the balloon's not so full of air and you can kind of bend it and manipulate it and curve it in different angles. So we're going to curve our oval in different angles so our bumblebees look like they're flying around. I'm going to start with this guy over here. And I'm going to make his little oval, but I'm going to start up here at the top of the oval. So let's see, if I want to plot him in here, you can pick wherever on the paper you'd like to put him. I'm going to put one right over here, and I'm going to start with the top of my oval and make a nice little curve here. I'm going to push a little darker with my pencil so you'll be able to see on the camera there. So here's the top of my little bumblebee's oval, and I want to make it curve around. So I'm going to come around on the top of his back, but I want it to curve down here a little bit. When I curve around, I'm going to let it come in a little bit. Like I got a little bit of a frown there. So see how my oval kind of bent a little bit?
Like a peanut.
It does kind of look like a peanut. Kind of looks like a peanut. Yep. Good southern bumblebee here. He looks like a boiled peanut because boiled peanuts get kind of soggy, so I bet they could bend. So anyway, we got the oval at the top, our nice curve here. He came right around, got his curve down here, and then this side of him bent in just a little bit. So he kind of looks like he's flying and getting ready to land on a flower, maybe, do you think? Now, I want to see his head. And when we see the bumblebee's heads on the end here, it's kind of like we're seeing half of a circle. The rest of it disappears right down into that fuzzy body of theirs. So I'm going to come on the end of my butterfly that I want to have his head on, and I'm going to put like a backwards letter C. Got a head on your butterfly here. Now, butterflies have these very cool wings. Their wings are kind of transparent.
Butterflies.
Oh, not butterfly. I called it a butterfly. A bumblebee have these transparent wings. We see through them. They don't usually have any color on them. And they're kind of shaped like a triangle. Kind of like a skinny triangle, but they don't have points on them. They got curves, okay? And they come from this part of the bumblebee. I'm going to keep calling our bumblebee a butterfly. So we want to think of, if this was a person's body, this would be where their shoulders are up here. So we're going to have two wings coming out. Now this guy, we're not looking at him from the top, are we? We're kind of looking at him from the side. So if you see something from the side, I might see one wing, if these are his shoulders here. I might see one wing. I'm going to put one wing on. I'm going to go up like a diagonal, curve around like the bottom of the triangle, and come back. I'm not going to hook them together. So this wing would be coming from this side. Since I'm looking at the bumblebee from the side, the other wing's going to come out from this other side, isn't it? So I can't see around there, can I? So I would imagine it would come from about here, but the bumblebee's body's blocking it. So it's almost like I've jumped my pencil up above and it's coming from here. Oh, here, I'll finally start seeing it. Come up, curve around its end, and come back down. And when I bump into the bumblebee's body, I gotta stop, because that wing's coming from the other side of him. Now, when you think of a bumblebee, what do you think of first? What really makes it noticeable that it's a bumblebee are its colors, right? They're basically yellow and black. And they got a yellow stripe, then a black stripe, then a yellow stripe, then a black stripe, and then a yellow rear end. So our bumblebees, immediately when you see a bug that's yellow and black stripes, you think bumblebee. So we're going to give this guy some stripes. I'm going to let right up next to his head is going to be my first bit of yellow. And then I'm going to curve a stripe in here. Instead of drawing a straight line across my bumblebee, I want to put a curved contour line. I want my bumblebee's body to look like it's a little bit round, right? Bumblebees are these fat little round balls almost. So if I put a straight line, it would look like I squashed my bumblebee, which we might do if he was trying to sting us, but we're going to let these bumblebees have fun in our flower garden. So I'm going to then leave some space. I'm going to put another stripe back here. And I'm going to see my lines right through that wing, because remember, my wing's transparent. So I can leave this yellow, and I got a black stripe, a yellow stripe, and a black stripe. And then he gets a yellow rear end. I think their stingers are so tiny we don't really see them. And bumblebees have antenna, so I'll put a couple antenna here. And remember we said they have 3 pairs of legs. So if I was looking from one side, I'd see one little leg. I'm going to make them a bent, like a really wide V. And here would be one leg on this side. And here's his third leg on this side. Now, do you think we would see a little bit of the leg on the other side? You know how we saw this wing on the other side? We would see a little bit. If it's coming from this other side, maybe I see a little bit sticking down. Just a little bit sticking down. I'll make those legs not so long because they're coming from the other side. Okay, so there's one bumblebee. This one's flying in this way. Maybe I'm going to take this big chunky guy here and put him over here, but make him look a little better. I don't like how that butterfly or that bumblebee turned out. Okay, so if I came over here, I'm going to start the same way though. I'm going to start with the top of my oval. And let's see, how about if we put him in here? I'll make the top of the oval. I'm going to make him kind of bend like this one, but he's going to come from the opposite direction. So I'm going to go around the curve for the back, around a curve at the bottom of my bumblebee, and then give him just a little bit of bend in here. He's a bigger bumblebee than this guy. So it looks like a peanut. It looks like a very fat, short banana. They always get a little bit of curve to them. Or a short, fat hot dog. But hot dogs don't curve too well, do they? So we want to add the backwards letter C, although this would be facing frontwards. I'm going to put, just so I see my bumblebee's head on the end there. I can go ahead and put his stripes on. Now, these stripes curve this way because that's the way his body was curving. So this curve, I want him to match the front of this curve here. So I'm going to put a little curve right here. And another one, so there's my black. And I'll make another stripe down here near his back for his other black stripe. I might just take my pencil and do this. Remember when we did our op art and I squiggled in the lines? I wanted to color black so I didn't get mixed up. So I might do that. I might just squiggle in my lines. I know those are the ones I want to use my black oil pastel to color. Okay, he doesn't look much like a bumblebee yet, does he? He needs some wings, so let's give him a wing. Now this is where his shoulders would be. So I'm going to take and give him one wing that comes from here. Just like I'm making a triangle, but I'm not going to hook it together at the bottom. And then his other wing would be coming from this back side. So it's going to bump into that one. And what's he missing? He's missing his legs, so we can give him one leg here, one leg here, and one leg here. I think his back legs are a little bigger than his front legs. And then we want to see a little bit of this leg from the other side. There we go. So I got two oops, what's this guy missing? He needs his antenna. Looks like they're both aiming for the same flower in the middle here, doesn't it? And I think since I never like to just leave an even number of things on my drawing, I always like to go for an odd number. So I'm going to put a third one. And I kind of like this guy coming in from the bottom where I don't see all of it. So I'm going to come down here. This guy, I'm almost looking down on the top of him, aren't I? I'm not really seeing him from the side. So he's going to look more like an oval. So I want to start with the top of his oval here. And then we'll come down. And he's going to run right off the page. And come down on this side. And he's going to run right off the page. And I come up here. I'll give him his little half circle for his head. I can give him his 2 antennas here. And what's he missing? Got to give him his stripes. So I'm going to make a curve. I want my lines for his stripes to be curved. And this is what I'll color in. So I'm going to put my squiggle there. Then if I leave a big space, I might see part of this curve coming in here. But I think the rest of my curve's just going to go right off the page, isn't it? So I want to find where his shoulders would be, up here at the top of his body. And I'm going to give him a wing that's going to come out on this side. And I'll give him a wing that's going to come out on this side. There we go. So I got my 3 bumblebees crawling around on my paper. I got some smudges over here. Okay. Now, I would take your Sharpie. I didn't tell you to get your Sharpie out, did I? I would say get your Sharpie. I'm going to go over these lines with my Sharpie. Let's see if I got one that's in good working order. So while we're getting all caught up, I'm going to go over my pencil lines. If you like where your pencil lines are, you can go over them with your Sharpie. We're going to put the color on with our oil pastels. I'm going to go over their heads here. Now, see how smooth and curvy my lines are for the bumblebee? If you've ever looked really, really closely at a bumblebee, they're kind of furry. They're kind of fuzzy. You know how they look a little fuzzy? So we don't want the edges of our bumblebee to look really smooth. We want him to look fuzzy. So how could I make him look fuzzy? Instead of drawing a really smooth curved line, see how my line here, do we need to hold it up, Mr. Joey? See how my line went a little wiggly? Kind of makes him look more fuzzy. So I've got my line to follow here, but when I do it, I'm going to wiggle it just a little bit. I'll make a wiggly line. My wiggles don't have to be all the same size. I might even skip a few little spaces there to make it look wiggly. When I put my stripes on, you can almost take your Sharpie and just put little dots. See how that makes him look more fuzzy? He definitely looks a little more furry and fuzzy without having a single line. So I like my little zigzaggy lines. I even skip a few places so I don't color a straight line. Leave a few little empty spots on my line here. So I almost make just a few dots. I want his stripes to be dots too, or zigzags. And remember, his wings are see-through, so I can make my stripes go right through his wings. Okay? And then let's come over here and give this guy a little wiggly, squiggly, dotted kind of edge to him. This is a good way to create texture. We're creating texture so it looks like a fuzzy bumblebee, even though it's still the same smooth paper, but it gives the impression that he's a fuzzy bumblebee. Okay, oops, I didn't give this guy his antenna. And what else do I need to go over? I need to do his legs here. So got a leg. I'm going to see a little bit of that one. These legs on the front side can actually go up onto his body there. Let's see a little bit. And we'll do this one. Front leg. A little bit of that other leg. Front leg. A little bit of the other leg. Out front leg. A little bit of that leg. Oh, we didn't put any legs on this guy. Let's see some legs. Since we're looking at him from the top, we would see his legs just go out on either side of him. There we go. So this guy we're looking at from the top so we can see both sides of him. And I'm going to use my Sharpie to go over the outline of my wings. Do you see how on my wings here, I used my Sharpie and I kind of made patterns in the wing? The wings are clear on a bumblebee, but they get like little veins and patterns in them. You can make a pattern however you would like. I'm going to draw the outline of my wing here. And I'm going to come in here and make some patterns. I'm going to make a copycat line for the edge of his wing. Then I'm just going to come in here and crisscross some lines. It's getting kind of busy looking in there, isn't it? I'll make a little copycat line on the edge of the wing at the top. And then just crisscross some lines to divide it into some shapes in there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to make a little copycat edge on the top of the wing. And then just divide it up in all kinds of lines. Kind of looks like a stained glass pattern, doesn't it? Now this wing doesn't go over his body. Remember, it's coming from the other side of him. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put a little copycat curve up one side and then divide this into all kinds of little shapes. Okay. Shall we put the wings on the last guy down here? Let's give him some wings. Kind of trying to make my wings about the same size on both sides. They're not exactly, but that's okay because art doesn't have to be perfect. Art's supposed to be fun. So I don't want to get out my ruler and make sure I'm perfect. Just want to draw to give the impression. I can tell it's a bumblebee. Can you tell it's a bumblebee? I think we know those are bumblebees. I like the fuzzy outline. So what I'm going to do now is use my oil pastels. And to do a watercolor resist like this, we want to make sure when we color with the oil pastel that we cover all the white paper. If we color lightly, I'm going to get my yellow out here to test. If I color lightly, well, you know what I'm going to do before I color in? I'm going to erase my pencil lines. I don't really want to see those pencil lines through my oil pastels, so I'm going to erase my pencil lines. So if you want to stop and erase your pencil lines, you can do that. That way, see, some of my Sharpie didn't go exactly over the pencil. This way I won't see those pencil lines on my drawing. I'm going to erase them underneath this guy. And let's erase them underneath this guy. I always hold my paper when I'm erasing. Otherwise I might crumple the paper up. Now you probably don't need to press as hard erasing as me, because I was pressing my pencil really hard, remember? So you all would be able to see. Okay, now let's not brush all the fuzzies on Mom's table, or on the floor, I mean. So I'm gonna brush them off at the top of my table here. There we go. Now I'm ready for some oil pastel. What I was starting to tell you with oil pastels, wherever we color with the oil pastel, if we press enough that we get a nice solid color, then the watercolor won't stick, because I didn't want my bumblebees to look green and blue. I wanted them to look yellow and black. So I'm going to come in where I've got yellow first, and I'm going to press hard enough that I'm covering the paper. If I press really lightly, let's try over here. If I press really lightly and don't color it all in, can we see that at all, Mr. Joey? I don't have enough oil pastel on there to resist the watercolor, and all the places where I still see the white paper will turn green, would have a green bumblebee, which I don't know, there may be a green bumblebee out there someplace in the world, but I want mine to look yellow. So I want to press hard enough with my yellow to fill it all in. Now, do you see how I'm getting these little fuzzies? When you press hard with oil pastels, You get these little fuzzy pieces. Don't brush them off because then that just makes them smudge. And wherever you smudge, then your green leaves and blue flowers won't stick. So sometimes you can pick up those fuzzies with the end of your oil pastel, and you can wipe them off on a piece of scrap paper. Okay, so I'm going to go along, and remember, it's kind of like a checkerboard. We want to do every other stripe is yellow. So I'm going to fill in all my yellow first. I want it to go right underneath my wing. Remember, the wings are transparent, so we can see through that wing. So I'm going to color in the rear end of that one. I got a stripe on this one to color in. And I got this one's rear end to color in. And then over here would have this stripe up near its head. And did I do that right? Yeah, that'll be black, so this one will be yellow. It's kind of like doing a checkerboard. You got to color in every other one. Okay. So I got yellow on my bumblebees. How are you guys doing? Give me a thumbs up if are you working on your coloring? You want to make sure you press hard enough with the oil pastel, and we want it to look very solid like this so that we don't see any of the white paper showing through. Is yours turning out solid? If it's turning out solid, give me some thumbs up. We're going to put the black stripes on, but before we do that, do you notice on my bumblebee how the curved lines helped him look round, but we also put a little shading on him. So I used my orange oil pastel here because oil pastels are really cool. You can blend them. I'm going to use the orange like a shadow. So if this bumblebee was flying this way, I'm going to get a little shadow maybe on his tummy down here on this side of him. I don't want to put the orange all over. I just want to put the orange a little bit on this bottom side of him. Now, right now he kind of looks like a orange and yellow striped zebra. I don't want him to look like he's got stripes. I want him to look like he's got a shadow, right? On this one, since we look from right up on top, I'm going to put a shadow on each side and let the lightest part be in the middle. So I put a little shadow on this side, put a little shadow on this side, put a little shadow on both sides of him. But I want them to look like they're blended together. See how we don't really see where the orange stops and starts on here? So when you want to blend the oil pastels, you go back to the other color that's underneath. Take your yellow again, and you can go back and forth right where the two colors overlap. Go back and forth right where they overlap. And see what a nice job that does of blending them together? So here's where they overlap. The orange stops here, the yellow stops here. I'm going to go right over that middle part with my yellow. Just back and forth over the line. And that's going to blend your oil pastels together. Doesn't that look cool? It gives this really neat shadow. Now, see my fuzzy here and here? Don't brush them with your hand. That's the first instinct. You want to brush them off. I'll show you how we can tap them off at the end. If you don't want to pick them up with your oil pastel like I just did, I'll show you how we can tap them off at the end. So resist the urge to brush them away. Let's go over here and blend right where those overlap. So blended his little rear end there. And I'm going to come in here and blend these. I want to blend on both sides here, so they kind of meet in the middle with some yellow. So blend that one. There we go. Now I like that. Now he looks like the yellow's got a shadow to him, right? Now if you got lots of fuzzies, you can take your paper. You can tap it like this. If they don't all come off, take your finger and flick it like that. Do it on the table. Don't let this stuff get on Mom's floor. Okay? Keep it someplace where you'll be able to scoop all that up and wipe that up when we're done. Okay? So got bumblebees. They're kind of starting to look like a bumblebee, right? I got my black oil pastel out. I had used up a lot, so I took my fingernail and I pulled just a little paper off the end, so I've got some more sticking out. You want to keep your paper on so you can hold it. Otherwise, you get a lot of oil pastels on your fingers. Okay, so I'm going to come in and his head's going to be black. And you want to remember with the black, we don't want his head to look green when we put the watercolor on. So you got to make sure you color in and cover up all the white. You don't have to press so hard with the black. It's a very rich, dark color. So you just want to make sure that you cover up all the white of the paper. Don't let the white peek through. See, if I colored really lightly like this bumblebee will have a green head, won't he? So I want to come in with my oil pastel and I want to fill it all in. You don't have to press so hard as you have to just keep going over it. Okay? Let's give him a little bit of black fuzzy fur on his body. Remember, these are those stripes that we're going to color in. I'm going to color right over his wing because his wing's transparent, so I'll see the black fuzzy fur on my bumblebee underneath his wing. And let's give this guy some stripes over here. You ready to create a flower garden for them now? Flower garden's pretty fun. We get to be abstract and impressionistic. So we're not going to paint specific flowers. We're going to give the impression that our bumblebees have stumbled upon a beautiful flower garden of blue flowers. I'm going to show you a cool way to get all those different shades and the look of flowers without really painting them. So we just give the impression of where the bumblebees are. If you look at that picture, it looks like they're in a flower garden. So we've tricked the eye, even though we didn't paint an actual flower. Okay, got one more part of a stripe where my bumblebee is hanging off down here. Did anybody else do more than 3 bumblebees? I keep calling them butterflies. Anybody got more than 3 bumblebees? Or maybe you just put 1 bumblebee? Or if you wanted, you could have put 2. Send us a little comment and let me know how many bumblebees we got going out there. Okay, I'm going to lay my black oil pastel back down. And I'm going to use 1 more oil pastel on here. If I just left them like this, because remember we said the wings are see-through, right? So I could just leave them right there see-through, except I want to have a little look of white to them. I want them to stand out from the green. So I'm going to take my white oil pastel, which has a lot of other colors on it, but that's okay. And I'm going to start with his wing back here. Oops. I'm going to color over the wing with my white. So it's going to color right over my Sharpie lines where I made my design, which is kind of cool. Makes it kind of look like a transparent wing now. I'm going to then, running out of space on my white, so I'm going to take a little bit of paper off of it. There we go. And this wing, I want it to look like it's coming from his shoulder here, so I need to put my white right over where it went on the black, which I kind of like what it does. Look, it almost gives it a little bit of a gray shadow to the wing there. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing on these wings over here. I'm going to let them go onto the body just a little bit. And we'll let this one come onto his body over here. And then let's give this guy some wings. Now this wing's coming from the other side of the body, so I'm not going to go over the black right there. I had a lot of black still on my white oil pastel, so it's giving it a little shadow anyway. This wing goes right over his body. So we're going to have a lot of color on this one. See if I can get, there we go. Get a little bit of white over the black part of him there. There we go. So my butterfly's got wings.
Bumblebee.
Bumblebee. My bumblebees got wings. They kind of look like bumblebees. I like this bumblebee a whole lot more than this guy. This guy just looked like he was blown up too big and solid. I like these guys. They look good. They look like they need to come eat in the flower garden. So, finish getting all your oil pastel on there. Give me some thumbs up. Do most of you have your oil pastels on there? I'm going to show you two things to do. We've got one paper towel we're going to pat dry. I'm going to save the other paper towel over here. And we're going to get our styrofoam plate out. And our water. And you guys found your blue watercolor. Just going to take that lid off. And you found your green watercolor. Now, you could take your big brush and we can scoop some of this green watercolor out onto your plate if you would like and add some water to it on your plate. Or you could actually just put a little bit of water in your pot. So I'm going to scoop just a little bit of my watercolor on the end of my brush and put it on my plate like this. And this is pretty thick. That's because our watercolor is concentrated out of a tube. They've sucked some of the water out of the watercolor because watercolor is not thick. It's not like paint. It's thin, it's see-through, it's liquidy, just like colored water. So this is thick watercolor. We need to add some water back into it to reconstitute it. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water a couple times and swirl it around with my little bit of watercolor I put out. And can you tell, can you see on my plate here how liquidy that is? See how now it's like colored water? And here's the funnest part. Watercolor resist. I can paint right across my butterfly, my bumblebee like this and create the background with leaves here. Dip it in. Don't worry about these little fuzzies. You get maybe a little bit of the oil pastel that got caught on my brush. That's okay. When it's all dry, you'll be able to brush those off. So I'm going to come around here, and the first thing I'm going to do is put green in a bunch of places. I like where it starts running out of watercolor, so it starts looking a little lighter in some places. I don't have to put the watercolor every place. I could leave some white paper, and then when I put some blue on it, it's going to look a little different. So I'm going to leave a few little spots where I don't put it. I like that I started running out on my brush because it looks a little lighter in some places. Here's a really cool thing to do with one of your paper towels. Scrunch it up and pick out a few spots where you can come in and pick up some of the watercolor. That's going to give us a little lighter shades. It's starting to look more like it's speckled leaves all over the place. Okay? Now, we're going to add some blue flowers in our background. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take your blue watercolor pot you got here. I'm going to rinse some of that green off my brush, tap it on the side of your water container, and then pat it dry on your other paper towel. We want to save this dry paper towel that we blotched with. Don't use that one. Pat it dry on this other paper towel, and then scoop a little of this blue out on your plate. Oops, I dropped some, which is cool. Okay, so I've got this thick blue here, right? We want to water it down like we did the green. So I'm going to dip my brush in here 2 times. And now I've got watercolor. Look at that. So I want to take my blue watercolor, and I want to give some spots. I'm just going to touch my brush to the background. And see how cool watercolor, when it's in wet watercolor, it bleeds and it runs. It looks really cool. Now look at what the blue does on the spots that I didn't put any green. It's going to look even more blue. And I'm just going to dot my brush around like this. I want to leave some green showing. I don't want it to all look like blue flower background. But I could have some white showing with my blue flowers. Now, see how these ones where the green was really wet? You see how they've kind of blended in a lot? I'm going to leave my brush in the water for a minute. I'm going to take that paper towel that we blotched with, and I'm going to come in here in the middle here. I'm going to pick up some of that blue to make my flowers a little lighter right there. And it's starting to look like a very abstract, blurry flower garden, isn't it? Kind of think of if somebody took a picture and they didn't focus the camera, and we have this very blurry background. If you got any puddles like this, see how that kind of looks like a puddle? I'm going to pick up a little of it out of my puddle. Now, kind of looks like a very out of focus field of blue flowers, doesn't it? One thing you can do is, if I thought, oh, I wish my flower was a little darker blue right in here, rinse your brush off, tap it on the side of your watercolor or your water container, and then your paper towel over here that we were patting dry with, see if you can get it nice and dry. Okay, I've patted it really dry. And then I'm going to go back to my pot that the watercolor was in. Remember, this is the stuff I haven't thinned out as much as that, right? I'm going to put just the tip of my bristles in this kind of thicker watercolor. And I'm going to pick a spot. Let's say I want this flower to look darker. I'm going to smush the tip of my bristles right there. So it looks like that bumblebee zeroing in on a flower, doesn't it? And maybe, where should we put one more? Maybe make this one a little darker where this guy is zeroing in. Ooh, look at this nice dark one down here. Maybe we'll make that a little darker too. And Mr. Joey thinks we ought to make a darker one over here. Oh, I like our very abstract flower garden. I like this one a whole lot better than my first one I did. That one looks really, really cool. Look at that. This is a very abstract background. If you looked at it and didn't have the bumblebees there, you might not be quite certain what it was. But this looks really cool. When you step back and look at that, it looks like we've got all kinds of blue flowers, far away ones that aren't so bright, closer ones that are brighter. We've got all kinds of different shades of green leaves in our flower garden here. So you just created a very abstract, impressionistic background. It's abstract because it doesn't look specifically like something, but it's also impressionistic because it gives us the impression that it's a flower garden. And the bumblebees really help you notice that. So make sure that you take your brush. We'll use these chip brushes again, so make sure you rinse that out under the water. Hold it this way and let the water run over it like this. You want to hold the brush and let the water run down. Get all that paint out of your brush and let it dry. You can put the lids back on your watercolor. See, it looks like my paint's almost gone, doesn't it? But this is watercolor. I could add water to that and still paint some more with that blue. So put the caps back on your watercolor cups in case you got anything left in there that you could play with later this week. And Mr. Joey's going to pull my camera back. Whoops. He's stuck on my chair. Okay, I'm going to hold our picture up. I like how our picture turned out. Now, don't you pick up your picture like this right away. When the watercolor is still wet, if you hold it up, the watercolor will run. It's still soaking into the paper. So we want to let your watercolor dry like this for the rest of the afternoon. Let it soak into the paper really, really well. And then you'll have to take some pictures and show me what it looked like. I was gonna pick up a little bit more, but I don't have any dry paper towel. I got a big blob of water right there. There we go. So take some pictures this afternoon. Let me see your very impressionistic flower gardens with your bumblebees. And see if you've got fat bumblebees, skinny bumblebees, baby bumblebees, whatever you've got. Let me see your bumblebees. Take a picture when you take a picture and post it. Be sure and tag us at Idea Studio so I can see your pictures. I won't necessarily see your pictures if you post them unless you tag us. So put at Idea Studio.
Could you add a little salt when it's wet?
Oh, you could. Did Lydia or Patrick ask that maybe?
Alicia.
Alicia asked that. When you paint like this, when the watercolor is wet, it still has to be wet. I've only got a couple spots that are wet. You can sprinkle a little bit of salt right out of your salt shaker that's on the dining room table or in the kitchen on the kitchen counter. You can sprinkle a little salt in wet watercolor, and the salt, the little grains of salt, suck the color out of the watercolor, so it leaves these little white speckles, which would kind of go along with our speckled impressionistic flower garden. So watercolor is really fun. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. So take some pictures, tag us at Idea Studio, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.